The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from 12 different species gathered around the massive circular table. At the center, a holographic display showed a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star in what the galaxy considered a backwater system. Admiral Zephix of the Corthani Empire adjusted his crystalline breathing apparatus and spoke first. His voice carried the authority of someone who had never lost a battle. The humans have refused our ultimatum for the third time. They will not surrender their military technology, they will not submit to Galactic Council oversight, and they continue to expand beyond their home system without authorization. The representative from the Veltar Confederation, a being that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a jellyfish, rippled with agitation. This is unprecedented. No species has ever refused council jurisdiction for this long. The humans have been contacted for 50 standard cycles, yet they persist in their defiance. Their ships are primitive, scoffed the Drachmary delegate, his scaled hide shifting from blue to angry red. Chemical propulsion, nuclear weapons, crude electromagnetic communications. How can such a backward species pose any real threat to the established order? Admiral Zephix pulled up tactical data on the holographic display. Earth's solar system appeared, showing the positions of human colonies and military installations. Intelligence reports indicate they have established permanent settlements on 7 worlds and are actively terraforming 3 more. Their expansion rate is concerning, but their technology remains centuries behind ours. The eldest member of the Council, a floating mass of organized energy from the Eternal Collective, pulsed with ancient wisdom. Young Admiral, do not mistake technological advancement for capability. These humans have something our intelligence cannot quantify. In 50 cycles of contact, not a single human has defected to our side. Not one has provided intelligence. Not one has sought asylum from their own species. That proves nothing except their primitiveness, Admiral Zephix replied dismissively. They lack the sophistication to understand the benefits of joining galactic civilization. The Veltar representative's tentacles writhed nervously. There is something else. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected unusual energy signatures from the human systems. They appear to be developing technology along completely different lines from established galactic science. Impossible, the Drachmary delegate hissed. There are only so many ways to manipulate matter and energy. We have perfected these methods over millions of cycles. But the floating entity from the Eternal Collective dimmed with concern. What kind of energy signatures? Unknown applications of quantum mechanics, exotic matter manipulation, and something our scientists are calling probability engineering. They seem to be approaching physics from angles we never considered. Admiral Zephix slammed his armored fist on the table, creating a sound like breaking glass. Enough speculation. The humans are a minor irritation at best. One battle group from the Imperial fleet will be sufficient to bring them to heel. Their primitive weapons cannot penetrate our shielding. Their slow ships cannot match our speed, and their limited understanding of galactic warfare will crumble before superior tactics. The ancient being pulsed again, this time with what might have been regret. Admiral, what do you know of human history? Irrelevant primitive conflicts among savage tribes. They fought a global war that lasted 6 of their years and involved every nation on their planet. They developed weapons capable of destroying their own world during this conflict. They split the atom and harnessed its power for both creation and destruction. They sent members of their own species to die in metal cylinders launched into the void just to plant a flag on their moon. Which only proves they are reckless and self-destructive, Admiral Zephix retorted, or that they do not know the meaning of surrender. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Galactic Council had maintained peace for 10,000 years through the simple principle of overwhelming force. Any species that refused to submit was quickly shown the error of their ways. The humans would be no different. As the session concluded, Admiral Zephix stood and activated his personal communicator. Fleet Command, this is Admiral Zephyx. Authorization Omega-77. Initiate Operation Compliance. Target, Sol System Earth. Deploy Battlegroup Prime. Estimated time to complete subjugation, 7 standard days. The holographic display zoomed in on Earth, showing the blue and green world turning peacefully in space, unaware that the mightiest military force in galactic history was about to descend upon it. Unknown to the Council, deep beneath the surface of Earth, in facilities buried miles below ground, humanity was putting the finishing touches on technologies that would redefine the very nature of warfare. The same species that had gone from the first powered flight to walking on the moon in 66 years had not been idle during 50 years of galactic contact. Dr. Sarah Chun stood in the primary laboratory of Project Lazarus, watching as the final components of humanity's first line of defense came online. Around her, hundreds of scientists and engineers worked with the focused intensity of people who knew the fate of their species hung in the balance. Probability cascade generators are showing green across all parameters, called out Dr. Martinez from a station. Quantum entanglement communicators are synchronized with all defensive platforms. The temporal displacement field generators are charged and ready. Dr. Chin nodded grimly. The aliens thought humans were primitive because they measured advancement by conventional metrics. They had never encountered a species that approached the fundamental forces of reality with the reckless creativity that characterized human innovation. "Any word from the orbital monitoring stations?" she asked. Long-range sensors are detecting massive spatial distortions approaching from the Centauri vector. "Whatever's coming, it's big, it's fast, and it'll be here within 72 hours. Dr. Chun activated the global communication system that would carry her words to every human military installation on 7 worlds. "This is Command Authority, Chun. All units, all stations, all personnel, we are about to face the unknown. But we're not the same species that huddled around fires and caves. We're not the same species that crossed oceans in wooden ships. We are humanity, and we have never met a challenge we could not overcome." She paused, looking around at the faces of her team, seeing determination mixed with fear, courage mixed with uncertainty. "Initiate Protocol Prometheus. Let's show the galaxy what happens when you underestimate the human spirit." Across human space, weapons unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen began powering up. In laboratories on Mars, scientists activated devices that could manipulate the fundamental constants of physics within localized areas. On Europa Station, engineers brought online generators that could create temporary black holes and control their behavior with mathematical precision. In the asteroid belt, mining platforms transformed into weapons capable of accelerating chunks of matter to significant percentages of light speed. But the most important preparations were happening on Earth itself, in the minds and hearts of 8 billion human beings who had just learned they were about to face their first interstellar war. And in those minds burned the same fire that had driven their ancestors to tame continents, split atoms, and reach for the stars. The Galactic Council was about to discover that there are some species in the universe that become more dangerous when cornered, not less. They were about to learn that technological superiority means nothing against tactical innovation, strategic unpredictability, and the absolute refusal to accept defeat. They were about to meet humanity at what Admiral Zephyx stood on the command bridge of the dreadnought Inevitable Victory, watching the primitive Sol system grow larger on the main display. Around him, his fleet of 250 vessels represented the most advanced military technology in the galaxy. Each ship was protected by energy shields that could deflect planet-killing asteroids, armed with weapons that could crack moons, and crewed by the finest warriors from a dozen species. "Sir, we're receiving multiple transmission attempts from the human homeworld," reported Lieutenant Vex High, his insectoid features twitching with amusement. "They appear to be trying to negotiate." "Ignore them," Admiral Zephyx commanded. "Fear makes all species attempt diplomacy at the last moment." Deploy the fleet in standard subjugation formation. Target their orbital installations first, then their major population centers. Leave their capital city intact for the surrender ceremony. The inevitable victory's tactical officer, a Drakmari warrior named Score 80H, hissed with anticipation. Admiral, preliminary scans show their defensive platforms are unusual. The energy signatures don't match any known weapon systems. Primitive human ingenuity, the Admiral dismissed. They probably strapped nuclear warheads to their communication satellites. Begin the attack. The galactic fleet moved into position with the precision of a force that had conquered 1,000 worlds. Energy weapons charged, shield generators hummed to life, and targeting computers locked onto human installations throughout the solar system. But in the Deep Space Monitoring Station, hidden in the shadow of Jupiter's moon Europa, Commander Rebecca Torres watched the alien fleet approach with a cold smile. Around her, the most advanced command center humanity had ever built thrummed with activity. "Confirm all defensive platforms are ready," she ordered. "Probability cascade generators are online and synchronized," reported her tactical officer. "Quantum displacement mines are armed and positioned. Temporal distortion fields are ready for activation. And the Prometheus array? Fully charged and targeting solutions locked." Commander Torres opened a channel to Earth Command. "Dr. Chun, this is Jupiter Station. The guests have arrived, and they're even ruder than expected. They're not even trying to establish communication protocols." Dr. Chen's voice crackled through the quantum communicator. "Copy that, Commander. You're authorized to begin defensive operations. Show them what human hospitality really means." The alien fleet reached optimal firing position and unleashed destruction on a scale that had leveled civilizations. Beams of pure energy lanced out toward human installations, each one capable of vaporizing a small city. And then the impossible happened. The energy beams simply stopped, frozen in space like photographs of lightning. They hung motionless halfway between the alien ships and their targets. "What is this?" Admiral Zephyx roared. "Report. Sir, our weapons fire appears to be suspended in localized temporal distortion fields," the tactical officer stammered. "The humans have somehow slowed time around our energy discharges." Before the Admiral could respond, space around his fleet began to change. Reality itself seemed to stutter and shift as probability cascade generators activated throughout the solar system. Suddenly, the precisely calculated trajectories of the alien ships became chaos as the fundamental constants of physics fluctuated wildly in seemingly random patterns. "Navigation is failing," called out the helmsman. "Our inertial compensators can't adapt to the changing gravitational constants." "Impossible," Admiral Zephyx snarled. "The laws of physics are universal." "Tell that to the humans, sir," Lieutenant Vexhai whispered, his voice filled with growing dread. The alien fleet, designed to operate under predictable physical laws, found itself helpless as humanity's probability engineering created pockets of space where the speed of light varied, where gravity flowed in different directions, and where cause and effect became suggestions rather than absolutes. And then the human counterattack began. From hidden platforms throughout the solar system, weapons that shouldn't have been possible opened fire. Streams of exotic matter accelerated beyond the normal limits of physics, struck alien vessels with impacts that defied conventional understanding. Ships protected by shields rated to stop stellar-level energies found themselves pierced by projectiles that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The dreadnought Eternal Conquest simply vanished, not destroyed, but translated into a parallel dimension where it existed only as a probability. The heavy cruiser Dominion's fist found itself trapped in a localized time bubble where seconds stretched into hours, its crew aging decades in minutes, while their ships slowly dissolved into component atoms. "Sir," the communications officer screamed, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth." On screen, Admiral Zephyx ordered, his confidence cracking. A human face appeared on the main display. It was Dr. Sarah Chun, and she was smiling with a particular expression humans wore when they were about to deliver very bad news. "Good morning, Admiral Zephyx," she said pleasantly. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chun, Director of Human Defense Operations. I believe you intended to demand our surrender today. Your primitive tricks cannot save you, human," the Admiral blustered, even as another of his ships disappeared into a miniature black hole that winked out of existence after consuming its target. "You face the might of the entire galaxy." "Do we?" Dr. Chen's smile widened. "Computer, please show the Admiral the current tactical situation." The display changed to show the solar system from a tactical perspective. Of the Admiral's original fleet of 250 vessels, only 112 remained. The rest had been destroyed, disabled, or translated into dimensions where they could no longer affect normal space-time. "You see, Admiral," Dr. Chun continued conversationally, "while you and the Galactic Council spent the last 50 years congratulating yourselves on your technological superiority, we spent that time learning. Every diplomatic contact, every cultural exchange, every bit of information you shared taught us more about galactic science. And then we improved it. Impossible, Admiral Zephyx breted. Our technology is the result of millions of years of development by dozens of species." "Yes, and it's very impressive," Dr. Chen agreed. "Very refined, very perfected, very predictable. You see, you've been following the same scientific principles for so long that you've forgotten there might be other ways to approach the fundamental forces of reality. Humans, on the other hand, have only been doing science for a few hundred years. We're still learning, still experimenting, still asking what if instead of accepting that's impossible." Another wave of human weapons fire erupted from concealed positions. This time, the projectiles were pure probability constructs that reconfigured the target ships at the quantum level, turning advanced warships into clouds of their component elements. "You want to know the difference between human science and galactic science, Admiral? Your species learned to use the laws of physics. We learned to rewrite them." Admiral Zephyx watched his fleet continue to disintegrate under attacks that violated everything he understood about warfare. Ships that should have been invulnerable were being destroyed by weapons that should have been impossible. His perfectly coordinated battle plan was falling apart as human technology turned space itself into a weapon. "This is not over, human," he snarled. "The full might of the Galactic Council will what?" Dr. Chun interrupted. "Send more fleets? We'd actually appreciate that. You see, every ship you send teaches us more about your technology. Every weapon you fire shows us new ways to manipulate energy. Every tactic you use demonstrates another approach we can improve upon." The human's expression became deadly serious. "Admiral, you made a fatal error. You assumed that because we were younger, we were weaker. You confused inexperience with incapability. Most critically, you forgot the most important fact about human beings." "What fact?" Admiral Zephyx asked, though he was no longer sure he wanted to know. "We are very, very good at learning from our mistakes. And we are absolutely exceptional at making our enemies regret underestimating us." The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Zephyx staring at a tactical display that showed the systematic destruction of the most powerful military force in galactic history by a species that wasn't even supposed to understand the basic principles of faster-than-light travel. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to maintain what was left of their fleet as human weapons continued their devastating assault. Each attack was different, each approach was unprecedented, and each result was more catastrophic than the last. For the first time in his career, Admiral Zephyx began to understand that he was not facing a primitive species armed with crude weapons. He was facing something the galaxy had never encountered before, a young, innovative, absolutely ruthless intelligence that treated the laws of physics as guidelines rather than limitations. And that intelligence was just getting started. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in chaos. Reports flooded in from across known space as word of Admiral Zephyx's catastrophic defeat spread through diplomatic channels. The impossible had happened. A primitive species had not only resisted the Council's authority, but had utterly destroyed the most powerful fleet in galactic history. The floating entity from the Eternal Collective pulsed with deep concern as it addressed the assembly. Admiral Zephix's fleet has been reduced to 17 functional vessels. The humans didn't just defeat our forces, they dismantled them using technologies that our greatest scientists insist are impossible. The Drachmarie representative scales had turned a sickly gray color of shock. How does a species develop probability manipulation technology in 50 standard cycles? Our best research into quantum mechanics has taken millions of years to reach basic manipulation of subatomic particles. Because, interrupted a new voice from the chamber's entrance, you stopped innovating the moment you achieved galactic dominance. Every eye in the chamber turned toward the speaker. Admiral Zephix stood in the doorway, his crystalline breathing apparatus cracked, his armor scorched and dented. Of the proud military leader who had left to subjugate Earth, only a broken shell remained. "Admiral," the Korthani delegate exclaimed, "how did you escape? Our communications with your fleet were severed hours ago." Zephix's laugh held no humor. "Escape? The humans let me go. They wanted me to deliver a message." He stumbled into the chamber, and the assembled representatives could see the psychological damage written across his features. This was a being who had never known defeat, who had conquered species across the galaxy, reduced to a trembling messenger. "They didn't just defeat us," he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "They played with us, like a cat playing with wounded prey. Every weapon we fired, they turned against us. Every tactic we employed, they countered with something that shouldn't have been possible. They made our advanced technology look like stone knives and bearskins." The Veltar representative's tentacles writhed in agitation. "Explain their capabilities, Admiral. How did they achieve this impossible victory?" Admiral Zephix activated a portable holographic projector with shaking hands. "They don't follow the same scientific principles we do. Watch this." The display showed tactical recordings from a battle. The Council watched in stunned silence as human weapons defied every known law of physics. Ships disappeared into folded space. Energy beams traveled backwards in time to strike targets before they were fired. Probability waves transform matter at the quantum level. "This is impossible," breathed the Korthani delegate. "These effects violate the fundamental constants of reality." "That's what I thought too," Admiral Zephix replied, "until I realized that humans don't accept the word impossible. They treat it as a challenge to overcome rather than a limit to respect. While we perfected existing technology, they invented entirely new branches of science." The ancient being from the Eternal Collective dimmed with growing dread. "Admiral, you mentioned a message. What did the humans want you to tell us?" Admiral Zephix straightened, and, for a moment, his old authority returned. "They want to establish new terms for galactic civilization. No more council supremacy. No more forced submission of developing species. And absolutely no more interference with human expansion." The chamber erupted in outraged voices from a dozen species. The very concept of negotiating with a species they had intended to subjugate was beyond their comprehension. "Unacceptable," roared the Drachmarie representative. "The Council has maintained galactic peace for 10 millennia. We cannot allow one primitive species to overturn the established order." "Then they gave me this to show you," Admiral Zephix said quietly, activating another holographic display. This recording showed something that chilled every being in the chamber to their core. A human ship, sleek and strange, emerged from what appeared to be folded space directly above the Council's primary military shipyard at Rigel Station. The vessel was small, perhaps the size of a courier ship, but as they watched, it began to change. The ship's hull rippled and flowed like liquid metal, expanding and reconfiguring itself. Within minutes, it had transformed into something the size of a dreadnought, bristling with weapons that hurt to look at directly. Energy readings from the vessel suggested it was somehow drawing power directly from the quantum vacuum itself. This recording was taken 3 standard hours ago, Admiral Zefix said. While you've been debating here, human ships have appeared at 17 major military installations across the galaxy. They're not attacking. They're just waiting. The Veltar representative was nearly vibrating with panic. How did they traverse galactic distances so quickly? Even our fastest ships require days to travel between systems. They don't travel through space, the Admiral replied. They manipulate space. From what I observed, they can create temporary wormholes that connect any 2 points in the galaxy instantaneously. Distance has become irrelevant to them. The floating entity from the eternal collective pulsed with deep thought. This changes everything. A species that can ignore the limitations of space and time, that can rewrite the laws of physics at will, they could reshape galactic civilization overnight. Which brings us to their actual message, Admiral Zefix continued. The humans don't want to conquer the galaxy. They don't want to rule other species. They want something much more dangerous than that. What could be more dangerous than conquest? Asked the Corthani delegate. They want to teach. Silence fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. A species that treated scientific impossibilities as engineering challenges, offering to share their knowledge with others. The carefully maintained balance of galactic power would collapse within generations. They're offering to establish what they call educational exchange programs with any species interested in advancing their scientific understanding, Admiral Zefix explained. They want to create research partnerships, share technological innovations, and help other species develop their own approaches to physics and engineering. The Drachmarie representative's scales flushed deep red with rage. They seek to corrupt galactic civilization with their chaotic approach to science. Order must be maintained. Order? Admiral Zefix laughed bitterly. The humans showed me their industrial capacity. They have orbital manufacturing platforms that can construct starships from raw matter in hours. Their automated mining systems are strip mining entire asteroids and converting them directly into usable resources. In the 50 cycles since first contact, they've expanded their industrial base by a factor of 10,000. He gestured at the holographic display showing the human ship at Rigel Station. That vessel represents just the beginning of their capabilities. They told me they have experimental ships that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, weapons that can retroactively prevent their targets from ever being built, and defensive systems that make their ships immune to conventional attack by existing outside normal spacetime. The ancient being pulsed with what might have been resignation. Were their terms: immediate cessation of all hostile actions against human space, recognition of human sovereignty over their claimed territories, establishment of formal diplomatic relations based on equality rather than submission. Admiral Zefix paused. An unconditional amnesty for all Council forces involved in the attempted subjugation of Earth. Amnesty. The Veltar representatives' tentacles coiled in confusion. They're offering to forgive our attack. They said, and I quote, "We understand that fear makes people do stupid things. We're willing to overlook this incident if you're willing to learn from it." The Admiral's voice carried a note of wonder. They're not seeking revenge. They genuinely seemed to believe that this conflict was caused by misunderstanding rather than malice. The Corthani delegate leaned forward. And if we refuse these terms? Admiral Zefix's expression became haunted. They didn't threaten us directly. They just asked me to remind you of something they called Moore's Law. Apparently, it's an old human principle stating that technological capability doubles every 2 standard years. They've been following this pattern of exponential growth for over 200 years. He activated one final holographic display, showing a timeline of human technological development. The assembled representatives watched in growing horror as the progression accelerated, showing how humans had gone from primitive chemical rockets to probability manipulation in less time than most species took to develop basic metallurgy. If this pattern continues, the Admiral concluded, in 10 cycles, they'll be capable of things we cannot even imagine. In 20 cycles, the difference between human and galactic technology will be so vast that will seem like bacteria to them. In 50 cycles, he let the implication hang in the air. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, reduced to cosmic insignificance by a species that had achieved spaceflight less than a century ago. The floating entity from the eternal collective dimmed to its lowest possible luminosity. We have no choice. The humans have demonstrated that they can destroy us at will. Our only option is to accept their terms and hope they maintain their apparent benevolence. But even as the Council prepared to draft their surrender, they all understood the same terrifying truth. Humanity had not just won a battle or even a war. They had fundamentally altered the balance of power in the galaxy forever. And this was only the beginning of what they could accomplish 6 months after the Battle of Sol. The galaxy was transforming in ways that no one could have predicted. The Galactic Council's acceptance of human terms had opened floodgates of change that swept across known space like a tsunami of innovation. Dr. Sarah Chun stood in the observation deck of humanity's newest diplomatic station, watching as ships from dozens of species docked at the facility. The station itself was a marvel of human engineering, constructed from exotic matter that existed partially outside normal space-time, making it effectively indestructible and capable of accommodating beings with vastly different environmental requirements. Director Chun called Dr. Martinez as he approached with a data pad. We've received formal applications for the advanced physics program from 47 different species. The Veltar want to study probability manipulation. The Drachmarie are interested in temporal mechanics. And even the Eternal Collective is requesting access to our quantum consciousness research. Dr. Chin smiled as she watched a Korthani research vessel dock with unusual gentleness. 6 months ago, that same ship design had been part of the fleet sent to destroy Earth. Now its crew was here to learn from the species they had tried to conquer. "Any word from the field teams?" she asked. "Beyond our wildest expectations," Dr. Martinez replied, his excitement barely contained. The Regellian Industrial Partnership has increased their manufacturing efficiency by 300%. The Centauri Medical Exchange has led to breakthroughs in genetic therapy that could extend lifespans across multiple species. And the most surprising development. He paused, grinning widely. The Drachmarie have developed a sense of humor. Dr. Chun raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me. It seems that exposure to human creativity and unconventional thinking patterns has triggered psychological changes in some species." The Drachmarie research team discovered that what they called illogical thought processes actually enhance their problem-solving abilities. They've started appreciating irony, making jokes, and even engaging in what they call recreational deception, which is apparently their term for practical jokes. Through the observation deck's viewport, Dr. Chun could see a group of beings from different species working together on what appeared to be a joint engineering project. A Veltar's tentacles intertwined with a Korthani's crystalline manipulators as they assembled some kind of device that was simultaneously beautiful and utterly alien. "The integration is proceeding faster than our most optimistic projections," Dr. Martinez continued. "Human teams are already embedded with research groups on 37 different worlds. Our educational exchange programs have wait lists that stretch for years. And the technological breakthroughs." He activated his data pad, showing a stream of reports. "The Andromeda Navigation Guild has developed a new form of faster-than-light travel based on human spatial folding techniques, but they've improved it to work across galactic distances. The Vegan Agricultural Consortium has created self-modifying crop systems that can adapt to any planetary environment in real time. The Altarian Defense Network has built shield technology that exists in 11 dimensions simultaneously. And they're all sharing this knowledge freely? That's the remarkable part," Dr. Martinez said. "The human model of open scientific collaboration has been adopted by virtually every species we've worked with. The old Galactic Council model of hoarding technology for strategic advantage is being abandoned in favor of rapid, cooperative development." A soft chime indicated an incoming communication. The holographic display activated to show Commander Torres at Jupiter Station, but the background behind her had changed dramatically. Where once there had been sterile military functionality, now there were garden areas, art installations, and what appeared to be recreational facilities. Dr. Chun, Commander Torres said with a smile, I have an update from the Defensive Monitoring Network that you need to see. The display changed to show a galactic map, dotted with thousands of lights. Each light represented a monitoring station, but where 6 months ago they had all been purely human installations, now they showed a rainbow of different technologies and species. We've established joint monitoring stations with 11 different species, Commander Torres explained. The early warning network now covers 70% of the galaxy, and it's entirely collaborative. No single species controls any critical node, and all data is shared instantaneously across the entire network. Dr. Chin studied the display with satisfaction. Any threats detected? That's the interesting part, the commander replied. We've identified 3 potential hostile species from beyond the galactic rim, but instead of preparing for war, the Joint Monitoring Network has been developing what we're calling preemptive diplomacy protocols. Explain. When we detect a potentially hostile civilization, instead of treating them as an enemy, we're sending joint diplomatic missions. The idea is to offer them the same educational exchanges and technological partnerships that have been so successful within the galaxy. The approach is showing remarkable results. Dr. Chin nodded approvingly. Human creativity combined with galactic wisdom and resources. The results speak for themselves. A new voice joined the conversation as another holographic figure appeared. It was Admiral Zephyx, but he looked nothing like the broken warrior who had delivered humanity's message to the Galactic Council. His armor had been replaced with robes that seemed to shift between different states of matter, and his crystalline breathing apparatus had been upgraded with technology that appeared to be part organic, part mechanical, and part pure energy. Director Chun, Admiral Zephyx said with what might have been a smile, I wanted to personally thank you for the opportunity to participate in the Advanced Military Science program. How are you adapting to human tactical doctrine, Admiral? It's revolutionary, he replied with genuine enthusiasm. For millions of years, galactic military strategy has focused on overwhelming force and technological superiority. Human tactical thinking introduces concepts we never considered: adaptive strategy, creative problem-solving under pressure, and the use of apparent weakness as a strategic advantage. He activated a holographic tactical display showing a 3-dimensional battle scenario. Watch this simulation. A traditional galactic fleet faces a numerically superior enemy using conventional tactics. The display showed a straightforward engagement where the larger force systematically destroyed the smaller one through superior numbers and firepower. Now watch the same scenario using human-inspired tactics. The second simulation was barely recognizable as the same battle. The smaller force scattered in apparently random directions, used unconventional weapons combinations, created false targets, and ultimately won by convincing the enemy fleet to destroy itself through misdirection and psychological manipulation. The human concept of thinking outside the box has applications we never imagined, Admiral Zephyx continued. We're developing military doctrines based on creativity rather than brute force, strategies that treat every limitation as a challenge to overcome rather than a constraint to accept. Dr. Chun was about to respond when emergency alarms began sounding throughout the station. The holographic displays immediately shifted to show what had triggered the alert. A massive spatial anomaly had appeared at the edge of the galaxy. Report, Dr. Chun ordered. Dr. Martinez's fingers flew over his controls as data streamed in from the monitoring network. It's enormous, Dr. Chun. The spatial distortion is the size of an entire star system, and it's approaching our galaxy at speeds that should be impossible. Analysis? Unknown technology, but the energy signatures suggest a civilization more advanced than anything in our galactic database. Whatever's coming, it's powerful enough to pose a threat to the entire galaxy. Admiral Zefix's expression became grim. Director, this appears to be exactly the kind of extragalactic threat that the old council always feared. A civilization so advanced that conventional resistance would be futile. Dr. Chen looked at the tactical display, showing the approaching anomaly. Then, at the galactic map, showing the cooperative network of species that had emerged from humanity's influence. A slow smile spread across her face. Admiral, 6 months ago you would have been right. A single advanced civilization could have conquered or destroyed our galaxy. But that was before humans introduced a concept that changes everything. What concept? Exponential collaborative innovation. Dr. Chun activated the station's galaxy-wide communication system. All stations, all species, all research groups. This is Director Chun. We have a new challenge approaching. I'm transmitting all available data to every scientific and military installation in the galaxy. She paused, looking out at the ships from dozens of species docked around the station, each one representing a unique approach to understanding reality. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications, we have 48 hours to develop technologies and strategies to deal with a threat beyond anything our galaxy has ever faced. The old approach would be to despair and prepare for defeat. The human approach is to see this as the ultimate engineering challenge. Her smile widened as she thought about what could be accomplished when the creative chaos of human innovation was combined with the accumulated knowledge and resources of an entire galaxy. Let's show the universe what happens when you give an impossible problem to species that don't believe in impossible solutions. The response to Dr. Chen's challenge was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Within hours of the alert, research stations across known space had transformed into hubs of frantic but coordinated activity. The collaborative network that had grown from human educational exchanges now faced its ultimate test. On the observation deck of the diplomatic station, Dr. Chun watched in amazement as real-time reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The holographic displays showed a three-dimensional map of galactic civilization, with thousands of points of light representing active research projects, all working on the same impossible deadline. Status report, she called to Dr. Martinez. Incredible, he replied, his voice filled with awe. The Andromeda Navigation Guild has combined their improved FTL technology with human probability manipulation to create temporal research bubbles. Scientific teams can now experience subjective weeks of research time in actual hours. Dr. Chin nodded approvingly. What about the other major research groups? The Veltar Confederation has linked their entire neural network to human quantum consciousness interfaces. They're processing theoretical calculations at speeds that approach the computational capacity of small stars. The Drachmarie have somehow learned to weaponize their newfound sense of humor. They're developing tactical confusion protocols that could make enemy forces too bewildered to fight effectively. Admiral Zefix materialized as a hologram from his command vessel at the galaxy's edge. Director, the approaching anomaly has revealed more of itself. We're not facing a single civilization. It's an entire galaxy-sized entity that appears to consume other galaxies for sustenance. Dr. Chun felt her blood chill. A galaxy eater? Worse. Our analysis suggests it's intelligent. This isn't a natural phenomenon or even a conventional predatory species. It's a single, vast consciousness that treats entire galactic civilizations as food sources, and it's been heading toward us for millions of years. The holographic display zoomed in on the approaching threat. What had initially appeared to be a spatial anomaly now revealed itself as something beyond comprehension. A living structure the size of a galaxy, composed of dark matter and exotic energy, with neural-like networks of light that pulsed with alien thought patterns. How long until it reaches us? Dr. Chin asked. 26 hours, Admiral Zefix replied grimly. And conventional weapons are useless against something that large and composed of exotic matter. Dr. Chin activated the galaxy-wide communication network again. All research groups, all species, all cooperative projects, we now know what we're facing. A singular intelligence that devours galaxies. I'm transmitting full analysis data to all teams. She paused, looking at the readouts, showing the impossible scale of their enemy. This entity has consumed unknown numbers of civilizations over cosmic time. It represents entropy, stagnation, and the end of creativity in the universe. Everything we've built together, everything we've learned from each other, everything we've created through cooperation, all of it means nothing if we can't solve this problem. Dr. Martinez looked up from his console with an expression of stunned disbelief. Dr. Chun, you need to see this. We're receiving coordinated research proposals from over 10,000 different scientific installations. They're not working in isolation anymore. They're functioning as components of a galaxy-spanning research organism. The main display shifted to show the collaborative network in real time. Lines of communication connected research stations across the galaxy. Data flowed in streams between different species, and theoretical models were being tested and refined at speeds that defied comprehension. The Eternal Collective has contributed their deep-time memory banks, Dr. Martinez continued. They remember fragments of information about previous galaxy-eating entities from cosmic history. The Regellian Industrial Consortium has already begun constructing prototype weapons based on theoretical models that were just conceived 15 minutes ago. A new voice joined the conversation as a holographic figure appeared. It was the floating entity from the Eternal Collective, but it now appeared somehow brighter, more complex, as if human creativity had enhanced its already ancient intelligence. Director Chun, the entity pulsed. We believe we understand the nature of our enemy. The Galaxy Eater is not merely a predator. It is the end result of a civilization that chose order over creativity, control over innovation, dominance over cooperation. Dr. Chun leaned forward. Explain. Millions of years ago, this entity was likely a galactic civilization much like our own. But instead of embracing the chaotic creativity that humans have taught us to value, they chose absolute order. They eliminated uncertainty, suppressed innovation, and created perfect predictability in all things. The ancient being's hologram brightened with what might have been excitement. In doing so, they achieved a kind of immortality, but at the cost of their ability to truly grow or change. They became trapped in an eternal cycle of consumption, seeking to absorb the creativity and novelty of other civilizations to sustain themselves. So we're fighting against the ultimate expression of the old Galactic Council's philosophy, Admiral Zephix observed grimly. Precisely. And that gives us our strategy. Dr. Chin smiled as understanding dawned. We don't fight it with conventional weapons. We fight it with the one thing it cannot understand or predict. Human creativity combined with galactic resources and wisdom, the Eternal Collective entity confirmed. We bombard it with innovation, chaos, and the fundamental unpredictability of truly cooperative civilization. The galaxy-wide network erupted into even more frantic activity as the new strategy was communicated to all research groups. Within hours, prototypes began appearing that violated every conventional understanding of physics and engineering. The Veltar created probability weapons that fired pure potential energy, transforming whatever they struck into random configurations of matter and space-time. The Korthani developed musical warfare systems that attacked the Galaxy Eater's consciousness with harmonics based on the mathematical patterns of chaotic creativity. Human teams contributed weapons that existed in multiple timelines simultaneously, striking their target across different possible futures. Drakmarie tactical groups created confusion fields so intense they could make reality itself uncertain about what was actually happening within their area of effect. But the most remarkable development came from the combined efforts of all species working together. They had created something that had never existed before in the universe's history, a galaxy-spanning organism of pure cooperative intelligence. Director, Dr. Martinez called out, his voice filled with wonder. We're not just building weapons anymore. The entire galaxy has become a single, thinking entity. Every species, every research station, every individual consciousness has become a neuron in a galactic brain. Dr. Chen looked out at the network displays and realized he was right. The lines of communication between species had become so dense and rapid that they resembled neural networks. Data flowed like thoughts, innovations propagated like inspiration, and the combined consciousness of an entire galaxy was focusing on a single, impossible problem. 23 hours until contact, Admiral Zephyx reported. But, Director, something unexpected is happening. The Galaxy Eater has slowed its approach. Our analysis suggests it's confused. Confused. It's encountering something it has never faced before. Every civilization it has previously consumed was either isolated or unified under a single, predictable paradigm. It doesn't understand how to process a galaxy where thousands of different species are simultaneously thinking the same thoughts while maintaining their individual creativity. Dr. Chun activated the final phase of their defense. Across the galaxy, the weapons and systems that had been developed in less than 24 hours came online simultaneously. But they were no longer separate projects. They had been integrated into a galaxy-spanning expression of cooperative chaos. When the Galaxy Eater finally reached the edge of their space, it encountered something that had never existed in cosmic history, an entire galactic civilization that functioned as a single creative consciousness while maintaining the individual identity and innovation capacity of every component species. The entity that had devoured countless galaxies over millions of years suddenly found itself facing a form of organized chaos that it could not comprehend, predict, or consume. Every time it adapted to one attack, 17 different species would simultaneously develop new approaches that violated the assumptions behind its adaptation. The battle that followed lasted only minutes in real time, but those minutes contained subjective years of combat, as temporal manipulation fields created pockets where thousands of different tactical approaches could be tested simultaneously. When it ended, the Galaxy Eater was not destroyed, it was transformed. Exposure to the pure, creative chaos of galactic cooperation had broken the stagnant patterns that had defined its existence for millions of years. It began to change, to grow, to innovate for the first time since its ancient civilization had chosen order over creativity. Dr. Chin stood on the observation deck, watching as the former Galaxy Eater slowly transformed into something new, a galaxy-sized organism of pure creative potential, no longer seeking to consume other civilizations, but to learn from them and contribute to the growing network of cooperative intelligence. Status report, she called it Dr. Martinez. The threat has been neutralized, he replied with a grin. But more than that, we've gained a new partner. The transformed entity is already contributing research insights that could advance galactic civilization by millions of years. And it's not the only one. Dr. Chun raised an eyebrow. Explain. Our success has apparently been observed by other galactic clusters. We're receiving communication attempts from civilizations across the universe. They want to learn about cooperative chaos, about the human approach to treating impossible problems as engineering challenges, about building societies that value both individual creativity and collective cooperation. Admiral Zephyx materialized one final time, but now his holographic form seemed to sparkle with contained energy. Director Chun, on behalf of the former Galactic Council and all species in our galaxy, I want to thank humanity for giving us the most valuable gift in the universe. What gift? You taught us that the impossible is just another word for hasn't been solved yet. You showed us that diversity makes us stronger, that chaos can be organized, and that cooperation multiplied by creativity equals infinite potential. Dr. Chin looked out at the galaxy that had been transformed by human influence, where species that had once been content with technological stagnation were now pushing the boundaries of reality itself, where cooperation had replaced dominance, and where the next impossible challenge was viewed as an opportunity rather than a threat. "Admiral," she replied with the characteristic human smile that had become a symbol of optimistic defiance across the galaxy. "We're just getting started." In the depths of space, the galaxy continued its ancient rotation, but now it carried something new, a civilization that had learned to combine the wisdom of age with the creativity of youth, the stability of cooperation with the innovation of competition, and the strength of unity with the power of diversity. The universe had just become a much more interesting place.